Tom Petty always said the waiting is the hardest part, and that's where we're at now. I'm waiting until the stream is live. I need to see it. If I don't see it, it's not real. I'm the doubting Thomas of the internet, and it takes a little bit to get on all the platforms. Now it looks like we're on the YouTube. What's up, YouTube? How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for giving me another day. Rockfin, you're slow. What's up, Rockfin? Rockfin's hanging out. Rockfin's saying hello. Rockfin's saying good morning. Sorry about my hair. Again, this is just what I have now. This is just what happens. I'll eventually get around to fixing this. And I'm sorry, but it looks like we're on the platform. So, good afternoon, everybody. All my East Coasters. How's your afternoon? Do you have a good lunch? Good morning to all my West Coasters. This is on the West Coast. We're both having our morning, which is nice. And good evening. If you're in an evening time zone, that's a bunch of other people. And of course, to everybody in the future, Australia, New Zealand, you're a day ahead. We need you to fix climate change for the rest of us. You're in the future. You have the most cutting edge technology. Being in the future, throw us a bone. We're counting on you. No pressure, but I believe in you. I believe in you. By the way, I hope everyone's dreams have come true. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. Our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. You can get their tea wholesale now for the pandemic, and a Ron tea is in the works. I keep saying it might happen. I need to change that and say it will happen, because it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And the Ron tea, I'm pretty stoked. That's all I'll say right now. But the Ron tea is going to be amazing. But in the meantime, show them some love. Support an amazing independent tea shop. Our friends over at triageoil.com. Trendy Name makes topical pain oil for your body. I use it myself, and he educates the public on cannabis issues. Check them out over at triageoil.com. And Indie Left. Indie Left is the only place to find all the articles and vids from the content creators you know and love. I'm there. A bunch of folks are over there, and they update the platform twice daily to find out more about what they got going on and to subscribe to their Discord community. They got a Discord community going. You can check them out at independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. Also, I always throw it out there. I did their theme song. Their theme song was done by yours truly. And if you want a theme song, patreon.com/Ron Placone. Give what you can level, and I'll make you a theme song if you want one. All right, without further ado, I've noticed that a lot of times when I'm talking digital rights, for some reason, it always happens on a Tuesday. I've noticed that has happened for a little bit now. I can think of at least 2 or 3 occasions. So I'm noticing a trend. So I use the hashtag Digital Rights Tuesday, and today is no different. We got some digital rights issues to go through today. And we're going to be talking to Leah from Fight for the Future. You know that Fight for the Future is an amazing digital rights organization. They do amazing work. I've had the honor to collaborate with them on a couple campaigns. And Leah is going to walk us through some stuff that is going on with proctoring software. So Leah, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ron. Great to be here.
Good to see you. And so let's get right into it. There's a couple different companies involved here. One of the big ones is a company called Proctorio, which sounds like it's just the Italian word for proctologist. And as someone who's on the Duolingo app trying to get better at Italian, I just thought, well, I might need to know how to say that. But it's not that. It is software that proctors exams, but it's a bit dystopian, isn't it? Why don't you walk everybody through exactly what this stuff is and why it's a concern?
Yeah, absolutely. So e-proctoring is something that has become popular throughout the COVID-19 pandemic with the shift to remote learning. In particular, universities that previously really relied on in-person classes that are incredibly expensive to attend, hello student debt, are having to switch to online and concerned about the legitimacy of the education that they're offering to students through online learning versus having it be in person, which is traditionally how higher education is done. And so in this space, a whole range of people who have worked on stalkerware apps, spyware apps, the sort of apps that an abusive partner would install on the phone or the laptop of their partner to monitor what they do, saw an opportunity. And that opportunity is to stalk students when they're taking exams, and sometimes even when they're just doing coursework, by taking over their computer, reading the files on it, by accessing their entire web history, by filming them, by using racially biased facial recognition algorithms on them, and by forcing them to do scans of their room, their laps, wherever they are. There's a whole lot of issues with this technology, the largest of which I think is that there is no, and I mean zero, independent research that shows that these apps actually prevent the cheating that they say that they do. Basically, we have a whole bunch of unethical spyware and stalkerware apps that have sold their technology to hundreds of universities around the world to be used by millions of students, violating their rights and their privacy, and nobody really even knows if it works. I mean, the companies selling it say that they do, but that's really all we've got here.
They might be a little biased. And well, and this sounds exactly like what was going on with the facial recognition campaign. Once again, there was no documented evidence out there that facial recognition makes anybody safer. Most cases, it was being abused and misused. Cops were using it to try to find information on an X or something like that. And then you had all these instances where it got mismatches most of the time anyway. And we're seeing that again here. Here's a couple examples of what we're talking about here. So this is ExamSoft is the company in question here. They have some privacy and facial recognition concerns. This article is from VentureBeat. Now, they go through a story here where this person was not picked up by the software because the person because of their skin tone. So basically, this is meant for the skin tone that it recognizes the most is white. So sometimes black people and people of color, this software will just not pick them up, and it won't register that anybody is there. Is that what's going on in this case?
Yeah, that's accurate. And it is really accurate to point to facial recognition and the concerns around that technology here, because to a large extent, that technology is the same thing that e-proctoring apps are used to like verify identity and like track eye movements or facial twitches or emotion or any of these bizarre, invasive, weird AI things that they're purporting to do that have to do with, you know, cheating or educational legitimacy. It's funny because like with proctoring apps specifically, they know to a large extent that the phrase facial recognition is toxic, and people know that this technology is bad and that it is racist. And so because of that, you'll see these technologies have marketing materials that call it facial detection, facial analysis. It's all the exact same thing.
Of course.
It's just like this.
Of course they did that now.
Absurd marketing spin on to try and hide from the fact that they have some pretty racist technology embedded within these apps that are flagging, either telling people of color that they don't have a face, or flagging them as cheating more often and sending them to the professor to review as potential cheaters more often, subjecting them to additional scrutiny.
So, because that's another thing that happens here, and let's go down to this part as well. Here's something that happened. Now, another thing that's very common in facial recognition software is it's very susceptible to hacking. And there have been cases where this software has been hacked at borders, and a bunch of sensitive information was leaked about a bunch of people. Now, here's something that's happened with this proctoring software. Security is also in question. On July 27th, remote proctoring software company ProctorU, how many of these companies are there, by the way, was hacked, and the data breach exposed the personally identifiable information of 400,000 people. So imagine that getting into hands where it shouldn't be. And it's just susceptible to hacking.
It's out there like that. That information, once it's leaked, and again, I know that other guests have probably gone over this with your audience, but we have to remember that you can't change your face like you can change a credit card number. That's just not a thing. And so now that this information, which could be everything from name, address, social security number, biometric scans of face, how they did on their tests, where they took their tests, how old they are, like hair color, gender, like this searchable database of 400,000 people, and their identities, who they are, how they did on the tests, and is all out there to be exploited. And those people can't necessarily change that information. It's a gross abuse of power, and that data shouldn't have been collected in the first place. And yet here we are with, Proctorio, for example. If you look at it, well, it's hidden from the Google Chrome store, actually. You can only get it through a special link at getproctorio.com. But it has a cumulative 1-star review, and 2 million installs. So to give you an idea of the scale of this worldwide, it's massive. It's an entire generation of young people who are being told that they are guilty until they're proven innocent, and that they have no right to privacy. And that's fundamentally a flaw in the future of our nation and our democracy and our freedom.
So you sent this to me. Now there is a Twitter account that keeps tabs on the complaints of Proctorio, and they also, I think, tweet on their own as well, but they're kind of curating different concerns around Proctorio. Let's take a look at this. So here's one. Professor using Proctorio for one of the midterms said, I sent it. This one freaked me out. Now, professor using Proctorio for one of those midterms said, I set it to where you can't move your lips. It may think you're talking to someone. Ma'am, says the tweeter here, Brendan, ma'am, I'm just reading the questions. I haven't been in school in a hot minute, Leah, and I don't know if you were these people, but I was totally one of those people that talked to myself constantly during an exam. Not super verbally, but if I was alone doing it remotely because of the circumstance the world finds itself, I would totally be talking to myself.
Yeah, and this is a whole other huge issue, because there are a lot of professors out there who have been doing what they do for a very long time. They're people who function in a specific way in their role as an instructor, and don't really learn new technology, or they're a lot of TLDR, a lot of these people have trouble opening a Google Doc or logging into their own email. And yet, they're being served this technology where they can check all of these boxes without understanding anything to do with what they're checking boxes on or how it works. And the result of that is exactly that, what's illustrated there. If your lips move, you must be cheating. So for any student who may not be the ideal perfect student, who is white, who is abled, who has a private quiet room in a house with a stable internet connection to take this exam, no children, no pets, no interruptions, and silence. There's you will be subjected to additional scrutiny with your professor arbitrarily checking these boxes of what they think cheating may or may not be. And that's so problematic on a number of levels, because what it does is it takes the racism, ableism, and elitism of the university setting, and it packages it up nicely into an algorithm so that professors, administrators, etc., can point to the computer and say, the computer did it. I didn't do it. When in reality, algorithms are simply humans teaching computers how to make decisions, and we're teaching them our own biases. And it's absurd. It's truly absurd.
So to kind of sum up all the things that go on here, first of all, the just privacy concerns in general, where these databases are susceptible, they're getting hacked. This has happened with general facial recognition. It's happening here, and it's very sensitive info. There's that one case where over 400,000 people were exposed. That's a lot. Um, and not just that, but there's no evidence that this actually prevents so-called cheating. There's no evidence it's actually doing that. And just imagine, and I think the Twitter account really sums this up nicely because it's all tweets from students. Imagine the stress that is totally unnecessary that you're putting on students in addition to the stress they're already under. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like going through school right now in the world that we're in, where it's online. You don't know when you're going to be going back. My editor Joe is in college, and I know it's really stressful what he's going through. He tells me about it some, and on top of that, it's test day. You're already nervous because it's test day. That's stressful. And you got to worry about, oh, the software's not picking me up. It doesn't think I'm here. I can't take my test. I got to do something with the lighting. Oh, my lips just moved because I'm thinking out loud a little bit because I'm isolated in a room. Now it thinks I'm cheating. This is just a recipe for disaster. Now, has academia responded to this at all? Do they hear these concerns? Do they share any of them? Has there been anything like that?
Yeah. Even at the very beginning of this, there were faculty and staff at university administrations speaking out against these tools, pointing to the problems with bias and invasiveness. And several of those folks are either have received cease and desist letters from lawyers at these companies. And in one case, there's even a staff member who's being sued for speaking out against Proctorio in particular. So let's start there. That's really messed up.
Well, if you are an educator, your first priority should be the students. And first priority should be providing an education to people. And so if you're expressing concerns about different technology that are being used and you get sued for it, or you can get sued for it, yeah, that's very messed up. That is very, very messed up.
Yeah, that would be a slap lawsuit, and that's a guy at the University of British Columbia who's being sued and had his savings totally drained in the effort to defend himself and his speech in that way. And it's also concerning because there have been a lot of other abuses to silence criticism, everything from getting an 18-year-old student's tweets taken off Twitter by abusing the Twitter DMCA copyright takedown process to just last week, actually, Proctorio has been using the Freedom of Information Act to go around all the universities in the US that it provides its services to and demanding a list of names of anybody who has approached the university about them. And so that's almost like it's like the creation of an enemies list or something like that for potential other lawsuits or intimidation. And I have to say, the popular tide is really turning against proctoring apps at this point. And I believe that we're about to see some really bad behavior on their part because they're starting to recognize that they're in a fight for their existence, and a fight that really, if there's any justice in this world, they're bound to lose.
Well, let me ask you about the history, because this is one of those things where I wasn't even aware this was a common thing that was around until the Fight for the Future campaign. Have proctoring apps like this, have they been around for a while and now they're just really in the spotlight because of the pandemic? Or are some of these newer startups that are happening in response to the pandemic? Or, is it a little bit of both, or is it more of one or the other? Or what's kind of the history behind this stuff?
Yes, there have been proctoring apps that were similarly problematic previously, but the scale of adoption during the pandemic has grown so much that there are the existing companies, there are new companies jumping on the bandwagon, and then there are also companies like McGraw-Hill, the textbook company, that are entering into partnerships with proctoring companies and adding their tools to the educational backend, so that any professor that uses their technology just has to check a box in order to add Proctorio to it. So there's a lot of money here. And it seems like every unethical company under the sun that has to do with education is flocking to capitalize on it, despite the fact that there's no evidence that it actually works.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's go to this real quick. Now, Evan Greer, who is the deputy director of Fight for the Future and a friend of the show, she's been on the show a few times. She tweeted this out recently, so this is pretty breaking, and this goes into what we're talking about. She says, "Stop stalking your student." Now, DePaul is being sued over facial recognition tech used for online test proctoring. Now, I know this is pretty breaking, but what's going on here?
Yeah, one of the it's interesting. There has been a really limited amount of disclosure about what these apps are doing and collecting from students, and it came out in January that the Respondus system that that DePaul is using to proctor tests, etc., actually has been collecting biometric information on every student that takes those tests and storing it for up to 4 years. And there's a law in that state that about disclosure and consent to collecting of biometric information that has been completely violated, and students are very, very correct to file a lawsuit over this, because basically the software itself that the university sort of haphazardly and quickly invited in to be a part of its tests and a part of the learning experience, it didn't disclose what it was doing, and now rightfully they're being sued for taking all this data and information from students, storing it, doing who knows what with it, and never telling them.
So would this be a class action effort? Is that how this will be carried out?
I believe so. I've only read that article once quickly right before hopping on with you, but there's a lot of grounds for class action suits I would say throughout the country, especially from students of color and students, differently abled students, disabled students, I should say.
So let's kind of go more into Fight for the Future now. What are some other projects Fight for the Future has going on that you want to highlight?
Let's see. We're very optimistic with the new administration that our flagship issue, net neutrality, is going to be taking off and potentially being enshrined in law. And net neutrality is the concept that an internet service provider like a Comcast or an AT&T can't decide to put YouTube in the fast lane and Twitch in the slow lane, so that you have to pay a premium to access Twitch because they have a deal with YouTube, for example. It prevents the content carriers themselves from deciding what you can and cannot see and do online, which we think is really important, and was a law and was like an FCC regulation under the Obama administration that Trump rolled back.
Well, we've basically had net neutrality since the advent of the internet, which I think is a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, we just had it. We just had it during the Obama administration. Well, no, technically we had it since the advent of the internet. It was just an assumed rule, and it wasn't like on the books. So the cable companies wanted to see if they could mess with it. They tried, so we got it cemented into law. And then the Trump administration repealed it. And because of organizations like Fight for the Future fighting on the front lines, because of states trying to pass net neutrality bills, we were able to hold the lines. And to bring people up to speed, now, unless something has changed very recently, which feel free to correct me if I'm off here, the FCC is in a 2-2 deadlock, where there would be 2 pro-net neutrality votes to reinstate it and 2 likely anti-net neutrality votes not to reinstate it. And we're waiting for that 5th appointee by the Biden administration, who should be a pro-net neutrality vote. That's what we're hoping for. Biden did promise a pro-net neutrality appointee. My mom always taught me actions speak louder than words, so I'll believe I see it. But hopefully it will be a pro-net neutrality FCC person, which would then give it a 3-2 vote to reinstate net neutrality. Now, here where I live in California, our net neutrality law is moving forward because they they gave up all the lawsuits, basically. The big tech lost their lawsuit, and then the lawsuit that the Trump administration has, well, the new administration, the Biden administration, dropped that lawsuit. So our net neutrality laws are moving forward here in California, and I believe in some other states as well. Is that still where the FCC is at? Does everything check out there?
Yeah, that checks out for the FCC. Although for our part, we don't want to play this ping pong between a Republican administration and a Democratic administration, or like between appointees who are like bought by big telecom or not bought by big telecom. So our hope here is that something like the Save the Internet Act will be reintroduced, and that this will actually be enshrined in law, as opposed to being like regulated by the FCC, which is liable to change.
Because the Save the Internet Act just basically brings back the net neutrality protections we had and just puts it back, and that can be done through Congress.
Yeah, that's correct. So there's that, and then we've also been recently working a lot more on this issue, this sort of like drag out fight between Amazon and libraries in terms of access to like digital books, ebooks, and audiobooks. And that's been super interesting, and also pretty dire in terms of the numbers.
Because Amazon, which imagine being the second richest person in the world and waking up in the morning and thinking, you know what I should do? Screw over libraries. That's what's missing from the world. I should screw over libraries. I'm the second richest person in the world. I will never want. My family will never want. Their children will never want. Their children will never want. And so on and so forth until the end of humanity. I should screw over libraries. I should do that. So what's going on there specifically? Why is Amazon screwing over libraries?
Well, Amazon is screwing over libraries because Amazon isn't really, like, even though they're the largest book publisher in the world, they aren't really a bookseller, or largest bookseller in the world. They aren't really a bookseller, they're a data company, and their goal is to set up systems by which they can collect the maximum amount of data possible and surveil all of their consumers, all the people that support them. And that is sort of antithetical to the whole purpose of a library. Like, libraries have a core directive to protect the privacy of their patrons, and many libraries won't actually offer any books through like Amazon Kindle, for example, because Amazon collects a huge amount of data on individual readers, what they like everything down to like how frequently you're turning the page and what you read over again. It's so granular. And so what Amazon is doing is they're trying to edge libraries out of the digital book future, which is particularly egregious during the pandemic. And they're doing this by creating a lot of exclusive content and using their market power to cement deals and partnerships with people like Trevor Noah, Michael Pollan, to pay them a whole bunch of money for like an audiobook exclusive on their Audible platform, or an ebook exclusive on, Amazon Kindle, and then forcing anybody who wants to read that book, like to pay Amazon to access it, not only with dollars but with data. And that cuts out essentially all marginalized readers. So anybody who's reliant on a library, anybody who can't afford to pay Amazon, anybody who doesn't want what they're reading to be tracked. And this is a growing access problem through public libraries that's only going to get worse. A lot of times, one of our maxims is, if you want to see, a potential digital future, the most likely digital future, look at what's happening to marginalized people now.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, because what they're likely trying to do, and we've seen this happen time and time again, is they'll try to make it so that it eventually, slowly but surely, becomes common where, well, of course you can only get this book on Amazon. We're just used to that by now. And eventually there won't be any fee whatsoever. You will be able to get it, quote, for free, but you'll be paying them in data. That's what they're slowly building. And it's incredibly problematic. I don't know about you. On a personal level here, I can't imagine what this pandemic would have looked like for me had I not had my trusty Libby app.
Libby is very cool. And if you're you're a big e-reader, and you're like, oh my god, my Kindle is surveilling me, I don't like that. Highly recommend Libby. The problem with that, though, is that there's also this like price and arms race in digital books, not only with Amazon but also with the other big five, potentially soon to be big four publishers. That's resulting in situations like there's a school district in California, for example, that was recently in the news because they're having to pay $27 per student per ebook per year in order to let students read The Diary of Anne Frank. And that's taxpayer money for a limited public school budget that is just melting away under the pressures of trying not to like sell students data to get a cheaper price, trying to get books to students during a pandemic when many of them may not be able to go and pick up a physical book from the school, and coordinating that is a nightmare. And during which time, like, e-learning is becoming more and more a part of our everyday lives, and that's a price that's being paid right now. This is what's normal right now for this school district, and it's absolutely wild. And everybody who hears that number is just, as mad as I am about it. So we've organized this website called whocangetyourbook.com that lays out these issues, not only for public schools, libraries, and also independent booksellers, but also in terms of those who are being most harmed, whether that's young readers, English as a second language readers, disabled readers, etc. And also to be, to point out specifically, we're talking about low-income readers and rural readers here as well. And this divide of information access, where like you can go on the internet and you can get a whole lot of bullshit for free. Via social media or what have you, whereas like access to actual knowledge and narratives of other people's experiences, things that are in books, things that have been, vetted and given that gravitas, are unavailable to the people who perhaps might need those perspectives most.
Yeah, it's remarkable that we are entering an age where things should be so easily and readily available, and that should kind of democratize society in a better way. Yet, because of greed, which, man, haven't we heard this one before? But largely because of greed, it's actually they're finding a way to go backwards in many ways. And that's why, something y'all say at Fight for the Future that I think is very important, that folks really got to realize: digital rights are human rights. So where can people go? You mentioned whocangetyourbook.com. Where else can people go to get involved with the different campaigns you all got going on and to learn more?
So fightforthefuture.org is the catch-all. You'll find many links to our campaigns there. If you're interested in the subjects that we've talked about specifically here, you can go to baneproctoring.com to learn a little bit more about McGraw-Hill's relationship with Proctorio, and maybe send them a tweet telling them that it's totally horrible idea. And you can also check out, this is a long one, but for a reason, Proctorio is worse than a proctology exam.com. And that lays out the case for why it should be an absolute embarrassment for any university, for anyone to have a relationship with Proctorio at all. It is probably one of the most damning websites I've ever seen. And so if you haven't yet, Proctorio is worse than a proctology exam.com. Go check it out.
I can't believe that URL wasn't already scooped up. Kudos for getting it.
Seriously. And let's see. Okay. And we also talked about, I think most of the other ones, other than whocangetyourbook.com, are just go to the Fight for the Future website and check it out there. We're linking to what we're doing, and you can give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram as well.
Fightforthefuture.org. You guys know they're friends to the show, an amazing organization I've had the honor of collaborating with in the past. They're doing amazing, amazing things. And Leah, thank you so much for being one of the leaders in this fight. We really need you all. So thank you for sharing this information with us. And I look forward to having you back on the show again soon.
Rad. Thanks so much, Ron. Really a pleasure to be on with you.
Cheers. Be well. All right. There you go. So fightforthefuture.org. Check it out. Make sure you follow them on Twitter. Friends of the show, doing amazing things. It's very, very important, the work that they do. And yeah, that's crazy what's going on. Let me go to a couple comments here. Lucky Burrito A&M over on the Rock Fan. What's up? So you share a story here. My daughter is a hybrid college high school junior. Online learning, and so your daughter is online learning, and while taking tests, there is a random person watching her on this app. Okay, jeez. Oh, I feel. All right. So she is 17, and it's already stressful, but there's a stranger watching her, and she can't look away. Yeah, this is. I can see how this is very stressful and very concerning, and I get that you don't want people to cheat. I understand that. And I understand we're in a very difficult time. But these proctoring apps, they're not the answer. This is not the answer. Anyway, her teacher even acknowledged, getting back to your comment here, her teacher even acknowledged the issues and acknowledged the hack, you're saying. So I guess they heard the hack that we just talked about on the show today, but continue to use it. Her phone. Oh, sorry. It jumped on me here. Let me finish your comment here. Her phone with no service started going off randomly. Now students cry and they get flagged by this. So I guess if something goes off randomly, students get flagged. Yeah, it's again, I get the difficult time, but this is not the answer. This is not the answer, folks. So so go to fightforthefuture.org, show your support, because you know, and also she's 17. She's 17. And so if you can, Lucky, please, either you or your daughter, please email team@fightforthefuture.org. These are the types of conversations that they like to have. These are the types of this is the type of information that they need to help with their campaign. So please, you or your daughter, or both, email team, that's just team, TEAM, at fightforthefuture.org. They'd love to talk to you. So please do that. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you again to Leah at Fight for the Future and everyone at Fight for the Future for doing what they do. We will be back tomorrow with Keith, the founder of Food Not Bombs, which, Food Not Bombs, I would see them at all the shows I would go to when I was younger. And they're facing some problems in Santa Cruz. We're going to be talking about that. I'm really excited to talk to him. But in the meantime, and it'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Fightforthefuture.org. And you know the drill in the meantime. Lucy, she's on her cat tree. But Lucy says meow. And I say peace. Peace.